Hey, friends, welcome back. I'm so honored to be here. I have a beautiful, beautiful friend that I met through Grief over a year and a half ago. Hope, I think it's been over a year and a half. And she and I have actually, she graciously allowed me onto her grief healing journey. And I just want to say this for me. It is one of the most beautiful experiences when you are the grief specialist and someone lets you in. And this beautiful lady allowed me in, and she shared intimate moments of her grieving experience with me. But through one of those moments, this little lady shared her art with me. And that is what I want to bring you guys today. I want to bring you grief through art. And I'm not even sure what you want to call it, Hope, but here's my friend Hope, and I want you guys to meet her. Hey, Hope, welcome to the
Hey,
show.
Sharon. Well, I also, yes, Sharon is right. I met Sharon shortly after my husband died on TikTok through her grief school.
Yep.
And, I think it had only been about 3 weeks since he had died when I stumbled upon the grief school on TikTok. And it was just a saving experience for me. I had a grief therapist, and I do have a grief therapist here in the place I live. But this was an additional support, and I hung on to the grief school for dear life. You know,
And that's one of the things that I said I wanted you and I to include in the show. You have a grief therapist that you're working with. And I feel
Right.
like grief therapy and the grief school go really well together. But one of the things I really want to pull through this show is the different ways that you have done your grieving work. But before we get started, Miss Hope, share Jerry with us.
Well, Jerry and I had been married or been together for 47 years. And oh my gosh, how do you put in a synopsis of 47 years? I don't know. We had our ups and our downs. We had a very complicated relationship in that Jerry was a very kind, gentle-hearted man, but he suffered from PTSD from Vietnam, and that was a major hurdle for both of us. And so Jerry was not one to share his emotions or what was going on in his little head and soul. And no, it just made our relationship very complicated. But as my grief therapist, who I worked with during the caregiving experience, said, I swear to you, I've never seen a more true love between two people. And people have often asked me, well, how did you make it? Nobody makes 47 years anymore. And, I think people want to say, oh, he's my best friend and my soulmate. And it was like, nah, we just, to put it politely, put up with each other's crap.
Yep.
And, at the end of the day, we both said, yeah, screw you, no, screw you, turn around, walk away, and start over again the next day.
Yep.
And that's the way you do it. And we were good at that, but we never held grudges. We never were mad for days, except one time. I ran away from home. I was so mad at him.
I love
But,
your honesty. I love that you're bringing the truth to it because that most relationships, when we look under the cover, are that way, Miss Hope.
oh, absolutely,
And you're bringing the truth right to it. Okay, I want to
Okay.
two things. One, number one, there's multiple ways to grieve. You didn't just stick with the grief school, which I totally respect. Your other grief therapist specialist, you got her through your hospice program, correct?
No,
Oh,
actually, all right. Well, this is the big part of the story. Jerry was on hospice for 2.5 years.
wow.
And he didn't have dementia, though. He had congestive heart failure and COPD. And when he first elected, it was his choice, which I totally respected. He was tired. He didn't want to be in and out of ERs and ICUs and all that, which would have happened. And I said, I'll play the game either way you want to go. So he elected, no, I'm done. I just want to go on hospice. And we did not expect it to go on for 2.5 years.
Mm,
And that in and of itself, we could do a whole show just on that.
yeah.
Because by the time he died, I was so exhausted from the experience of hospice and the grief from hospice.
Mm,
I, as I was preparing for this art display here today, I realized, oh my God, I was already grieving not just the anticipatory grief, but all the other losses that happened through the hospice experience of my own life. So that by the time he died, I was almost too exhausted to now grieve his death.
wow.
And
Yeah.
that just figured that out, you know.
Wow. Oh, yeah. So you had all the experience that you had to go through.
Right,
Wow.
right.
Okay, I want to add another notch in that.
Sure,
And you were a nurse. And
correct.
what I find, and I've shared this with you before, I find that people in the medical field have this little extra, right? They've got this little
Right,
extra that goes along with the grief. Number one, I'm taking care of him. Number two, I know the difference. Number three, I
yep.
know what I'm doing. So you have the outside picture coming in, which also adds to the exhaustion.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I will say I am proud of myself in the fact that I let myself be his wife
Yes.
and did not micromanage his hospice care.
Right.
I would collaborate with his nurse and his caregiver, but when they got here, I would back off as things progressed.
Yeah.
I would just leave the room and let the nurse talk to Jerry by herself. And then we would communicate nurse to
Yeah.
nurse,
Yeah.
wife to nurse. And when his caregiver was here, oh, they fell in love with each other. They had the best relationship, was great for me.
Yes.
It's like I don't have to worry about this, think about it from a nurse perspective.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So,
One of the things for me when my dad was dying, my sister's a nurse practitioner, and having her in the room was such a huge, it helps me.
right,
So you kind of knew things that were going on and you were able to discuss in that way, even though you weren't getting, I think the best thing you could have done was step out. Don't you think that's
right.
hard for the nurses sometimes?
Um, Normally, like
Yeah.
especially when they're in the hospital, whether it's
Yeah.
Jerry or another family member or whatever, I strongly become the biggest patient advocate you ever want to meet.
Yeah.
Let's face it, it's scary in
Yeah.
healthcare these days.
Yeah.
And somebody's got to be there to make sure nobody's going to hurt you or harm
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's the honest to God's truth.
Yeah.
But being in the home was, and he had decided and accepted this is what he wanted to do. It was almost like I could breathe,
Yeah.
and then I could be just me, just be Hope.
One of the things that I've totally loved about you and Jerry, because I fall in love with your people when I work with you. And one of the things I've absolutely loved about Jerry is kind of how down to earth the decisions were and how you guys just kind of went, you went with it. And even the last cremation process that he chose and all of that and just being hanging out with you has been so amazing. So you had your you had your grief specialist you were working with. You were overseeing Jerry, sort of allowing hospice and Jerry to be letting him be
Right.
himself, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. But there's another aspect to this, and that you're an artist.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you get into art?
Okay, I am not a trained professional. I didn't go to art school or get a degree in art. It was just something I wanted to do my entire life, but never did. And I wasn't even a doodler or anything. I knew nothing. And I had breast cancer in 2002, 2003. And back in the day, we didn't call it a bucket list, but The cancer itself was very deadly. It's amazing that I'm even sitting here talking to you. Even my oncologist used to say, "Oh, hope you just keep beating the odds." No one could believe I made it through.
Right.
It was bad, Sharon. So, but I did, and bit by bit, I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I better do things I've always wanted to do. And I thought, I've always wanted to learn art. Let's do that, you know? So I went to our local art supply store and say, well, how do you do this? And they told me you can take lessons through the art museum or the community college or whatever. And so I also have been like a master gardener for years, and which I don't do anymore because other health and mobility issues. But they had a class that said, come paint, spring flowers in bloom. And it was like, hey, that's perfect, my gardening, my art. And here was the supply list, go buy this stuff. And so I did. Well, it turned out to be a watercolor class. And I knew nothing about any mediums. I didn't even know there were different mediums, acrylics, oil, pastels, watercolor. So I just went and bought watercolor stuff and away I went. And somebody said to me 6 months after that, you picked the hardest medium there is, right? And it was like, no, but I'm stuck now. So that's how I got started. And I would just take one class after another. And I had a horrible grief experience through my art classes. I had come across this wonderful, wonderful teacher, Reiko Hervin, who was a Japanese woman and married American fella, and she was here in America. Absolutely a phenomenal artist. And I took a class from her, and I was walking. I was the last person to gather my things and walk out of the class. And I thanked her, thank you so much for the class. And she said, you just keep painting, you have talent. And I was like, what? What? Could you say that again? Oh my God. And she said, no, just keep painting. So I took every class of hers that I could.
Wow.
But unfortunately, Reiko was driving home one night.
Mm,
Somebody was towing another vehicle on a flatbed in front of her. They did not have it secured. It
mm,
flew off the truck, landed on the top of her car. She didn't die instantly. She was in ICU forever.
mm,
Again, didn't think she was going to make it. They finally, after a month and several surgeries, they got her off the ventilator. They had her up in a chair. And I thought, oh, good, excuse me, I can go show Reiko what I've been doing, in her honor while she's been sick. I don't know if she had a cardiac arrest or pulmonary embolus or what, but boom,
oh,
she died.
wow.
And that just, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. A
broke
grieving
my
partner,
heart. Yeah,
a
totally.
mentor and a guide and a friend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Thank
And
you for sharing
I
that.
didn't paint for about 6 months after that.
Wow.
And but then I thought, no, Reiko would be really mad at
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
So,
Got to get to it.
keep
So
going.
I love that you've put together some of your art so that we can share it here. So I'm going to open up the screen and then I'll ask you some different questions about it.
Okay.
But before we shared, you wanted to read something. So while I'm opening
Yes.
it up,
Okay.
you can
I will be
read.
happy to do
Yeah.
that. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, I'm not a journaler. I'm not a letter writer. And it has come to the point where painting is my inner language.
Mm,
And this is how I express myself. And art to me is what words can't say. But when I first started exploring art, before I ever took these art classes, I had another therapist who was helping me deal with the aftermath of the breast cancer. And I will show you some of those early artworks later on. But she had me like make blocks of color and say, what does this color make you feel? And that kind of thing. And as I was putting together stuff for this, I came across something I had written. So this was over 20 years ago. And it says, there is no color for sadness.
Mm,
It is a void and emptiness where color doesn't exist. Sadness, for me, I felt the most profound sadness. It isn't even describable. It's not depression, it's sadness.
mm,
And I think that's just applicable to all of us, who
yes,
are grieving.
yes.
And as we go through some of these paintings, what I realized was a shift in how I use paint to express. Most of my paintings are vibrant, lots of deep saturated colors. And I didn't even realize I was doing this until I would go back and look at stuff and say, wow, that is not you. That is so subdued.
Right.
And so the grief was not coming out just in the subject matter, but the actual paint and values and what have you that I was choosing to use.
So let me ask a question then. So, because when we're painting or doing any type of creativity, it's really coming from our emotions and our heart, correct?
I think so.
So here we are, and your heart is broken. It's sad, and that was really coming across in the paint and in your paintings, but you weren't seeing it until you lined them all up.
Right. And
Oh, wow.
that's what's really interesting. Years ago, that original therapist that I was working with, what we discovered for me is it's the process of painting, not the final outcome. And that's where I'm working stuff out is while I'm painting. But sometimes I'm not aware that I'm working through something.
I was actually thinking about this morning, and when knowing that I was going to come in and interview, is that that was one of my questions. Is it the process of painting and processing? You're using more senses than just your heart emotion,
Right.
right? You're
Uh,
using your brain, you're using your
Good
eyes,
point.
you're using your hands. So all the senses are going, even the smell. You're smelling the paints. You might even have that taste in your mouth. So
Right.
all the senses are touching all of that. So you're actually processing the grief while just there and sitting.
Right.
It's almost like, I don't know, kind of being in the shower and having that water run on you and
Exactly.
you know what I mean? And thinking about that.
Right.
So tell us about this one.
Okay. Well, this paint now, I chose to show this one first, but it's actually my latest painting because I had lined them up as where I was in my grief, how many months, and where I was in the process when I painted it. But this painting had been on my mind, well, since almost Jerry died. Shortly after he died, I had some PBS show on, and it was called Wild Harvest. And it was two guys that go out in the wilds and find, bushes and twigs and berries or what have you, and bring them back to their kitchen and make this fabulous dinner. And so this was all about crabapple trees, wild crabapple trees. And what caught me is in the beginning of the program, excuse me, they had shot it all in grayscale. So
Wow.
all the leaves and the trees were all, what we call grayscale or value scale from white to black. And but then the pretty red apples would be showing through. And that just stuck in my mind forever. But I know a lot of artists do this, and you will think about a painting forever. How do you want to approach it? What composition do you want it to be? That kind of stuff. And I just could not puke out this painting until recently. It has been sitting there in my head for so long.
Okay, hold
Yeah.
on real quick.
Yeah,
So this painting has been in your head. You saw that picture and you're like, I want to do something of that. And you've been creating it in your head for a very long time.
right.
Share with me your other grief paintings. is it the same way with those, or
Yep.
did you just, they were?
Well, some are and some aren't.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Um, the other thing about I want to say too is, I've been using watercolors for 20 years, and no, I'm not, a national, treasure kind of
Yeah,
artist, but I know how it should be done. And
yeah.
I think that's what frustrated me about this painting because in my head, I've got to do pretty washes and make the sky this and then finally I sat down and I just kind of drew out the leaves and then I could feel the frustration,
Oh,
the not anger, but more frustrating. I don't want to do it this way. This is like my grief. I'm doing it this way. And and I realized that as I got through the painting, like you can see, the leaves are all kind of the same color, the very
yeah,
pale gray, but all what we call negative space in between the leaves,
yeah.
there's all kinds of different gray. It's not pretty, it's splotchy. And I realized that's while I was doing it, when I was done, I guess it was like, yeah, that's grief. Take that, you
Take
pretty
that.
artists out there,
Now, Hope, do you name your paintings?
This one does not have a name yet.
Okay. All right.
A lot of them don't. And but there's some real significant things in this painting. Um, if you look, you can see a muddy red, almost
Yes.
a reddy gray, green, and that's where all those pretty apples are supposed to be.
Oh,
But I realized, no, I'm not painting round, pretty apples.
yeah.
And it's like there's color out there in life, but I just can't see it like I used to. And
So,
I just thought that was just really significant.
so what do you think goes to the page here? The feelings, the emotion, the brokenness, the energy? Is it a release? What do you think is happening? And when does it happen? Before,
Oh, good
during, after?
question. I think with this particular painting, it came out while I was painting because this is not what I had envisioned in my head.
Yeah,
You know, like I say, I was going to do the very traditional, pretty watercolor and, draw the veins and the leaves and, all that pretty stuff. And I have lots of pretty paintings and they're not this.
Do,
And
I'm sorry, while you're painting, are you crying?
um, no, that's
Okay.
a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember crying. I
I would
might cry
imagine you wouldn't,
afterwards.
I would imagine you wouldn't be crying because all the senses are at work and
Right. You're just
releasing,
busy.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're busy
busy. Your
concentrating on
brain
what
is
you're
in there.
doing.
Yeah, your brain's
Right.
in there, your heart's in there, your hand is moving. I would imagine you wouldn't, because if you were crying, it'd be a whole different picture.
I agree.
Okay. Are you ready
Well,
for
then,
this?
well, I was going to point out a few more things because this
Sure.
painting is probably one of the most significant to me personally.
I love it.
And I did write some notes, so let me look real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, okay, so one thing I wrote again about the gray leaves is that they're very muted and hushed,
Yes.
and that's what my life had become.
Wow.
Not just with caregiving, but the whole experience and his
Yeah.
death, and now a year and a half of grief. I feel, yeah, muted and hushed.
Yeah.
And, just not just by myself, but by society and
Yeah.
friends. And we all know that, first year is over, you should be fine now, or,
Yeah.
what's the matter with you? You should be over this, So I thought that was interesting that that came out. And I also somehow feel that it somehow speaks to the endurance of what I'd been through, but I haven't quite connected those dots yet. It's like, well, the leaves are still there, the trees are still there, I'm still here. It's like I haven't given up, but I'm still not,
And I'm going to throw this out. This is just
yeah,
what I see. Could the endurance be the color trying to break through?
absolutely,
Yeah, the color trying to break through.
right?
Oh, beautiful. Because even down here, it has like a little pinkish tinge, and that
Mm-hmm.
could be, now I'm seeing a little bit pink in the background, just slightly, that it could
Right?
be some new life trying to break through.
Or my color really hasn't left me,
Yes.
you
And
know?
the other thing is, I'm not trying to make it perfect.
Right.
It's this is grief. This is it.
Yep.
But new sprouts will grow up. Wow. Wow.
And then another thing in this that uh kind of blew my mind is in the composition, all the leaves are together or touching, and on the left, there's one lone leaf all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like originally when I had drawn this, I realized compositionally there was this big blank space. Excuse me, I thought, oh, I should put a leaf in there. But then I realized that leaf is me all by myself,
Oh,
you know?
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then another thing is, okay, I had painted the whole thing, and at the top, it's almost like a horizon
Mm.
where you're looking out, and it's like, well, why would I have a horizon at the top of this paint? Like something came out there, and I haven't quite figured it out, but I decided, leave it there, don't paint leaves in there. Um, is it, life is continuing out there without me? I haven't quite pinpointed that. And then right there by the horizon on when I'm looking at the screen here on the left-hand side,
Yes.
you see that white
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
And that is, I never painted that and didn't realize I hadn't painted that until I was all done painting. And I thought, no, I'm just leaving that there because my brain didn't paint it. I don't know for what reason or why, but, and I think is that the puzzle of my life, Jerry, who's missing.
Yeah. Is it the puzzle or is it hope, right? That we
That could be.
not to fix anything, but
No,
that
no,
to go in there and see what's next.
that's uninteresting. Listen, that's what I love about art. By the way, art is so subjective. And let me interject here. By sharing these pieces, I'm hoping it might help other grievers see what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Like somebody might look at this painting, well, my leaves aren't gray, they're brown and they're all crumpled and nasty, or well, my leaves are green and they're fine, leave them alone, don't shake my tree. I mean, that's what I'm hoping to inspire. I'm not sitting here looking like, oh my God, that's so wonderful and blah, blah, no.
Right.
So that's my initial thought. I thought, is that Jerry missing out of my life? But
Missing. That's exactly it. Or is it that I'm supposed to
but
lean in,
I
look through that hole? Here's the other thing.
right.
You said art is subjective. Isn't grief subjective?
Oh, totally.
Right? Isn't it
And
subjective? I was like, oh my gosh, that's
yeah,
exactly what it is. Another griever is going to come in here and see her grief experience through this. And she's
right.
going to say, I really am in with the hole, the space that's open. I'm in with the horizon. That lone leaf really does speak to me. Everybody's grief is different. And so they'll see something different.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what I think. What
Yeah.
does the viewer think?
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, this actually is now one of my favorite pieces I've ever done.
I fell in love with it when I saw it.
Well, thank you, Sharon. But you're just,
Oh.
you know,
No, 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 I'm not
you know.
because this is not my favorite.
Oh, okay. Good.
All right, let's do the next one.
Okay.
And you have to tell me if they have a name yet.
Really, I have not really named anything
Oh,
except
wow.
grief.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jerry had been dead for about 4 months, and everybody kept bugging me. Well, are you painting? Are you painting? It's like, oh no, shut up, leave me alone, go away. I just didn't have the energy or the emotional fortitude or strength. But then I came across, I follow all kinds of different art people, and she had this challenge, do 20 paintings in 20 days and only spend 20 minutes on them. And I thought, well, okay, I could probably do that. And I know one time, Sharon, you asked me, where do you get your inspiration?
Yeah.
And some truly just come out of my head.
Yeah.
Like I say, the previous painting was from that program. This, I'm pretty sure I saw something similar to this on Pinterest and thought, yeah, okay, I'll paint that. And artists go to Pinterest all the time. And this was a painting that it was like, oh yeah, that's just fine. And but I didn't realize probably till a couple months after this, or maybe even more recent than that, that it was very odd color choice for me to paint. All these icy blues and icy purples, everything's very cool toned, which I do gravitate to as an artist, to cooler colors. But um, as I kind of went back and understood grief better, this was definitely in my numb stage.
Hmm.
And it's, to me, a very icy and cold painting. And I think it does represent that numbness, that everything's kind of quiet and suspended. And, it's not the traditional winter scene with pretty evergreens or decorated trees or people having fun, or it's I don't know, it's just very still painting to me.
Miss Hope, let me ask you a question. Okay, so you're when you walk away from a painting, I'm a
Hmm.
professionally trained florist. So I will do a flower arrangement that I think is absolutely amazing. And I take a picture of it and I come back later and I'm like, what the heck? Or I come back later and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the most amazing floral arrangement I ever made.
Right.
Is there a different emotion that shows up in a grief painting as opposed to a, hey, I'm having fun and I'm just out in my shop doing,
I will say that all these paintings are painted with more intention, more emotion, where, overall, kind of like I would think with your floor arrangement,
yeah,
you know, um, these are more, I'm throwing shit in a vase,
yeah, yeah,
excuse
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
language,
yeah, yeah,
and that's like other paintings that I have here hanging in my home.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I have to get the composition right and the colors right and the balance of this and, you know, worried about brush strokes. And these are more, oops, sorry. Hang on
That's
a
all right.
minute. I'm sorry,
You're fine.
I was waving my arms around and my Apple Watch wants to know, did I fall? I had to tell
No.
it. Yeah, I had to tell it no before it calls, 911 for me. Okay, so anyway, these paintings really are definitely just emotion. They have nothing to do with how art should be made.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you this now. When you come back to this painting, when you come back to it, does it
Yeah.
still touch that part of emotion that you were trying to release at that time? Have you noticed anything about that? Any connection to that?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at the original right here.
Oh, okay.
Oh no. Oh, there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there you
Yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah. Oh, yeah, it's really blue on the original. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know too if you can you see the sky on the screen?
No. Mm-mm.
Because yeah, I don't know if I can get it to show up, but no, that ain't working.
Yeah.
But the sky is all blue and purple as well. Oh wait.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I see it. I saw it for a
Yeah,
second there.
there
Yeah.
it is. So there's a lot of blue. Like I say, it's just icy and cold. And I don't think I even realized how icy and cold it was until many, many months later.
Wow.
because I
Wow.
was in that numb stage.
Yes.
So when
Yeah.
you're numb, you're not feeling anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
I could imagine that it was also a release. I'm icy and cold. It came out onto the art. And it's just like, I'm gonna attribute it to this. I go in the room and I cry, 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 and I get a little relief, and I'm like, okay. But you went in the studio and you painted, 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 and a little bit of relief blew off. Not the grief, just a little bit of relief. The emotions you were able to put it on
Right.
onto the canvas. Wow.
But I don't think at the time I realized I was
No,
doing that. To me,
no.
it was just like, oh, well, here's a good winter scene. I'll paint this, you know?
So let me ask you another question though. In the moments of these paintings, did you know grief was going to come up out? Did you want grief to come out?
No, I just wanted to go back to painting.
Mm,
I just wanted to have something normal in my life. I
mm.
wanted a piece of me back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Were
I
you
I
achieving that? Were you achieving that?
I thought I was
Okay.
until I go back and look at it now and go, oh, look at that. I'll be damned, you know?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I love the way they speak to you.
You know, and they all the paint, you know, a lot of artists, of course, sell their work and what have you. I have a hard time letting go of my work. I will exhibit it, and I have sold a few pieces, but they're like pieces of my soul, my heart, my spirit. I have a hard time letting go of them.
Miss Hope, I can't even imagine. This is such an intimate experience between you, your heart, your grief, and Jerry. How do you sell that?
Right. And
It
these
would
I
be
would
the
never
same. So
sell.
what would it be different if I had a journaled? If I had a journal all my grief with Austin,
Right.
and then I have this collection of journals. Here, let me sell this.
Right.
What's the difference? I don't see any difference, right?
I agree with you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Um,
You ready for the next?
yes.
All right.
Okay, this was a painting that I absolutely could not figure out. I just thought, again, it's just a fall tree. But then when I was done, it's like, well, that's not a hope painting. When I've painted fall in the past, it's vibrant oranges and reds and yellows and you know how intense, oh, excuse me, fall is. And I'm looking at this going, all those colors are really subdued. They're the ground is what really jumped out at me, that the ground is all brown.
Mm,
And I finally, after a long time, I think this is the painting that represents the process of terramation with
wow.
Jerry.
Oh.
So for people that don't know, terramation is a new or relatively new ecological process where you aren't cremated, you aren't buried, you are literally go through a process called terramation where you're turned into compost and then, you know, spread back to the earth or someone's garden or whatever. And but again, I didn't kind of pick that up until a few months ago.
And that's exactly what when I said about Jerry, the way he made decisions about how things were going to go and what he wanted
Right.
to do. And you introducing me to Terramation because I hadn't even heard of it before, but walking the journey with you as you're like, and this is happening now, and this is how the experience was. Yes, yes. Even
Yeah.
the tree is not on flat ground.
No.
Love that.
And I would never just paint the ground brown, you know? I mean, I
Right.
always have like some grasses or, you know, maybe a fall flower or, I mean, this was so not me, but obviously it's me, you know?
Mm.
And I sometimes wonder if the tree signifies I'm still standing in the
Right.
aftermath of all
Oh,
this.
yeah.
But the canopy of the tree, um, that's the one that I still haven't quite figured out.
Right.
It's like the canopy is fading. Is that Jerry fading into the earth? Or is the canopy is very heavy looking? So is that the weight of my grief? Feels really heavy. I don't know. This one has baffled me for a long time.
At what point in grief do you think this came out?
Actually, this was about the same period as the blue one that we
Okay.
just looked at. So when I think about it, um the terramation process takes about 60 days. And Jerry's teramated remains were completed, I want to say the end of November. He died in August. And so this could have been at the same time that they had informed me that he was all done and
Wow.
ready.
Wow.
And I would say probably about that time is when I painted this, but not thinking I was relating it. Well, let's paint Jerry's
Yeah.
terramation, kind of thing. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And this right here is one of the first pieces of art you shared with me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
This right here is one of the first pieces of art that you shared with me. And when I saw this in the collection, my heart leaped.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I did see this painting on Pinterest or, something like it.
Mm.
And it just spoke to me. And oh, I just saw something in the painting I hadn't seen before. Looking at the screen, it's like, oh, look at that. Okay, but the people on the path, originally when I painted it, I that is me walking with my inner child
Yeah.
and my nickname is Hopi. I've been called Hopi since I was a kid. And it's like I'm holding her hand, telling Hopi, you're going to be okay. I
Yeah.
got you. I got this.
Yeah.
We're going to be together and we're going
Yeah.
to be okay. But then again, months later, I'm flipping through my sketchbook and I see this and I went, oh, geez, that's me walking with my grief.
Yeah.
And sometimes grief is the big person and I'm the little person because grief is so big and so
Yeah.
glooming. And sometimes grief is the little person and I'm the bigger person where I feel like I'm comfortable right now. I can deal with this. I can handle this. And I don't know where we're going. There's no horizon line in this
So when
painting.
you sent it to me, it's them walking away, which was powerful to me, and the path. They're on this path.
Right,
For me to describe, it was just powerful to me. Like
right.
big person to little person. And I love when you say it's grief. It's grief.
Yeah,
We're
it's
walking
grief.
along and we're walking along. And that's how I took it when you first sent it to me. And
Well,
this
I love that. I
is
love
one,
that.
yeah, one where it just grabbed my heart.
Well, and in a way, I think for me, I have to make friends with the grief.
Yeah.
And meaning, it doesn't mean I love grief and I want to be sad and, oh, yay, I get to grieve today, kind of thing. But making friends with accepting it, going through the pain, working with it, working through it.
Yeah.
Because I just know from other life experiences and tons of therapy my whole life, you have to go through something and get to the other side, or it's
Yes.
just going to keep chasing after you.
Yes. Yes. And
So
this
I guess that's
to
what
me
that
was like,
signifies.
and working at it, like not running from it, not hiding, but being on the
Right.
path. And it's painful, but being on the path. I don't know. It took my heart away. Took my
Oh, bless you.
when I saw
I'm glad I could touch your heart.
it. You've touched my heart and a couple more. Wait till we get to them. Tell me about
Okay.
this beauty.
I just love this painting as a painting, not even anything to do with grief.
Yeah.
I just like, oh, I like this, I'm going to paint this. And but then I realized again, why did I pick this to paint? Well, it's the fog of grief, the brain
Yeah.
fog,
Yes.
again, the numbness, the stillness. You can see there's life out there somewhere, but you can't get to it. It just kind of, I think these are all my early grief paintings, and I think it comes through in these paintings.
Hope, did you paint while Jerry was sick?
I did, and we'll get to some of those later.
All right, perfect. Okay,
All right,
this is my favorite.
and this is the hardest one for me to talk about.
This is my favorite. First, you sent me Grief Walking the Path, Grief's Path. Oh, I just named it Grief's Path.
There you go.
And then you sent me this one. May I share
I-
something?
Yep,
One of the things that I teach, I know you're having a moment.
yep,
I'm giving you a chance to have your moment. I love you, Miss Hope. One of the things that I teach is having a plan. And one of the very first things that I helped you with in a very early phone call was what you were going to do to celebrate you and Jerry for your anniversary.
right,
And this reminds me of that. You coming
right.
up with a decision and how painful it was.
Well,
And
this actually is New Year's Eve.
okay.
And again, Jerry and I did not have a traditional life. Jerry worked in the casino industry his entire life, and he had to work every holiday known to man. And hang on a minute. And then being a nurse, I went through a period of life where for 7 years, again, I worked every holiday known to man, Mother's Day, Father's Day, you name it. Then I got into a more 9 to 5 position, but then we had opposite days off. Of course, I was off on the weekends. He would be off during the week because they all have to work on the weekends because that's their busy time. And so Jerry and I, holidays were very difficult for us. We very rarely got to actually celebrate something on the holiday itself, or we were squeezing it in. And the one holiday Jerry and I absolutely never celebrated together was New Year's Eve,
Mm.
because that's one of the biggest nights in casinos.
Mm.
So I would be home alone on New Year's Eve, except for one time. I went to see fireworks kind of thing. But then Jerry retired, and we were lucky he got to retire early at the age of 63. So now we finally got to celebrate. And, we could have Christmas and Easter and all those good things. But New Year's Eve became very private. It was just the two of us. And we'd always have a bottle of champagne, and, we'd make hors d'oeuvres. And I will admit, I live on the West Coast. So we would watch, CNN with Anderson Cooper and whoever was his sidekick at the time, and watch the ball in New York. And at 9 o'clock we could kiss and go to bed and call it a day. But it just became so special to us
Yeah.
because we finally could celebrate something together that was
Yeah.
just for us and nobody else. And so Jerry, like I say, died in August, and I had taken your course on how to get through the holidays and to have a plan. And I did pretty good, Thanksgiving and Christmas. But New Year's, there was no way I could have a friend come over or go somewhere. It just wasn't, I couldn't handle it. And so on New Year's Eve, this is the painting. I pulled out our champagne glasses, put them on the table, and I just let come out whatever came out, and that's the champagne bottle, and instead of champagne, tears. poured out of that bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his glass is spilled. The wine's on the table, and yeah.
Powerful. So
Yeah.
powerful. I believe that grieving women are going to see this and know right away. They're going to know right away. Thank
Um,
you. Amazing. Amazing. All the
yeah.
emotion. Thank you, Miss Hope, for sharing it.
Oh, absolutely.
We're coming to the end of the first show, but I think we have time for two more because
Okay.
the next one I had never seen before. And when you
Oh,
shared that one, wow. Thank you for sharing this very intimate painting that you've done with us. Thank you.
oh, no, thank you for listening.
And then we have this. Wow.
Okay, Sharon. This is all your fault. If you all participate in Sharon's program, she definitely, where did we learn about grief? Where did we learn to grieve? What's your life experience with grief? And I'm just sitting there, and that's a picture of me from behind. And what has always amazed me is the number of people that are like 40 something and never experienced anybody die
Yes.
in their life, you know?
Yes.
And I'm like, are you serious? And so we're talking about this, and I started going through in my head all the people who have died in my life. And so that's when I'm carrying these scrolls, starting when I was 5 years old with a
Mm,
grandpa. And these are all the people in my life that have died.
mm.
And I didn't name them individually, but I thought of them as I was marking them
Yes.
down on this paper. So
Yes.
it's a realistic accounting.
Yes.
And of course, Jerry's the only one whose name I actually wrote on the
Yes.
page. And I, it's, I think, why is I this person that carries around all these dead people?
Yeah.
In a sense, I mean, it's like grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents. I've lost a brother. I've lost three wonderful friends, fur babies, colleagues. Um, and yes, not all of them were as difficult as others, but I don't know. There's even some patients on here who I was very close to, and I was telling Sharon earlier before the podcast. There's a patient on here. She was the very first patient who died, and I
Mm,
was just finishing nursing school. And it was a very traumatic death for her and a very traumatic experience for me.
yeah.
And it's like, excuse me, I look at that and go, geez, Louise, what is it about me?
So it is so interesting that this painting and this is the list and the names. Recently in the story room, Miss Hope, I brought a bunch of women together to tell the raw story of their grief. And I started sharing first to make women feel more comfortable. And I shared about what it was like to actually see the body. The next week, we shared about that moment that your life changed. Was it a phone call, a visit from the doctor? And then this week, we shared about the funeral. And I had a few funeral stories, and I'm like, this is actually what I thought. Miss Hope, I'm so glad you're showing this to me. I People must think I'm crazy that I've experienced this much loss in my life. It
Right,
must be weird. It must be weird to other people. I'm like, and when I was this age, my cousin died, and then my aunt died, and then my uncle died.
right.
As it starts to line up,
Yeah,
is it an exorbitant amount of grief, or is it just that we don't talk about grief? So I don't
that's a
have
good
the
question.
answer. I don't have the answer, but
Now,
if you live long enough, you will have multiple experiences throughout your
oh,
life. And
how
there
can
are
you
the
not?
and there is the 40-year-old who will come along and say, "This was my first loss," and it shocks me every time.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And then, and not to take up too much time on this painting, but I've also told you how my dad, who he was a classical musician,
Yeah.
and in order to support the family, he would be a church organist or, sing at weddings or cantor for the Jews, this for the Methodists, whatever. So I was really exposed to the idea of people dying and that it was just really normal.
Yeah.
as a little girl. Where's dad? Oh, he's playing a funeral. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so I do have a different background than most people, when it comes to that. But to me, it was astounding when I started doing this. I was like,
Yeah.
so I'm sure, so I feel weird compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I shared a couple of funeral stories and I was like, wow. And I mean, I actually, it made my brain go back, Miss Hope, and say, how many times have I been in the room when people died? How many times did I plan the funeral? Like the stories that I share in grief aren't all my stories. The stories that I share.
Right, right.
This is amazing. Absolutely beautiful. She's absolutely gorgeous. And wow, that really tells the story.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be our last one that we have time for in this segment.
Okay. So this one is more recent. Again, I'm sure it came out of one of our group sessions or one of your classes. And it's just how we, as grievers, feel so alone in our grief. And this is just a hut in the desert. In there all by myself. I did give myself a window to see out. And I think when I think about me being there, I'm looking out to say, is anybody coming?
Wow.
Is anybody here? And you can see the phone poles, and they're detached, they're not hooked to the house because nobody calls, nobody asks anymore.
Wow.
And then I had showed this to someone, and there's that pile of rocks on the path up to the hut. And somebody said, oh, well, like you put those rocks there. And I said, no, it's the other people in society. They want to come, but they put the rocks there.
Mhm.
They, oh, see, I can't come because you got a pile of rocks there.
Yeah.
They don't go around, they don't climb over them. They just, okay, I'm not coming. And that's basically all that painting is saying.
So this is secondary loss.
Absolutely, it is.
Secondary loss. And I think this also, Miss Hope, is what shocks us when we become the griever, is that we end up
Right,
being an island all to ourselves. The phone lines feel cut off and people block their own path for coming in to help us.
right.
Amazing, right?
And then I kind of laugh too because it tells you how old I am about telephone poles and telephone lines. Nobody, I should have put in a cell phone tower or something like that. So,
So amazing. All right, Miss Hope, I want to say something to you. Thank you. You've
uh,
absolutely touched my heart. This is part one, our friends. We're going to get to part two next. One of the things that I absolutely love about this is through the medium of watercolor, we're able to talk about processing the pain of grief. And the fact that you brought that and you're sharing it with all these women, I want to say thank you.
well, no, I thank you for letting me share it and open up my heart and how I feel. And um, because I don't just share this stuff, haphazardly. Other paintings I do, but not these. They're so personal. And I do really hope that it will help other
Yeah.
grievers.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I'll see you in the next
Okay.
broadcast.
Thanks, you, Sharon.